to that question. One is what should the army have, and the other is what should the civilian population have. Both of these are predicated on what is the environment that they're going to be working in. For the military, cold weather gear absolutely critical. The snow pants, the parkas, the toques, the gloves, generators. So make sure they have a supply of gasoline and or diesel, depending on what the generator is. Then you have to consider the foodstuffs that they're going to have. How are they going to cook? How are they going to clean? How are they going to wash? You need POL because they're going to definitely need lubricants for the weapons, cleaning, things like that. Are they remote? Are they urban? For the civilian population, if you're out in the villages, these people know how to survive. They have done it for generations. Um, and the only concern there is, are they going to have the basic supply of electricity or cooking fuel outside of having to chop wood? But the resilience is there. It's really and also the other thing that's at play is what is the supply line to get things up to people when they need stuff. So the logistics is obviously going to be a massive need in that sense. But it just you know anybody who's been out in the snow is going to know that they're going to need to have protective clothing against the weather, especially when it gets very, very cold. Silly things like those little packets you can put in your gloves to warm your hands, things like that. All of these little things we don't tend to think of are absolutely needed over there. Um, yeah, that's about it for that one.
That makes sense. Tim, shall we go to our friend's lunchtime? I'm sorry, Atacam's lunchtime and Charles? That looks like Tim is grabbing a pint of beer. Atacams, you're first,
Yes.
and lunchtime, then Charles.
Sorry.
First, I want to thank everybody for being here, from the volunteers in the back that nobody ever recognizes, to all the co-hosts and like all of you. I think you guys are amazing. Thank you for everything that you're doing for Ukraine. I love you guys, like all of you guys. You're awesome and you guys are heroes. And I know you guys don't like to hear that, but you are. And I just thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart. And I guess I'm the crazy Ukraine lady because, like I said, every time I call, it goes straight to voicemail. I just did it before I spoke to you guys. And she sends me straight to voicemail, and she's up for election. So I can't understand it. Like, you would think they would pick up the phone, but whatever. They are thermite bombing Kyiv in residential areas as we speak. And you need to be the crazy Ukraine lady or man or whatever you call yourself these days, and constantly call them, like daily, email them. Like, that's the least we can do, and keep fighting for Ukraine. Like, they're not going to divide us. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care. We're all human. And if it's a genocide, and if you don't do everything in your power to fight against this, then you're supporting it. So thank you guys all for caring and being here. That's all I have to say.
Fully with you. Lunchtime.
Hi, Axel. Hello. So it was to chime in with I'm sorry, I think it was Background something, who was talking about engagement in Twitter. I heard that speaker. It was during Daryl's shift last night or this morning. I don't know. It all sort of merges. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what credence to give it, but it does sound plausible, as he said, because the thing to bear in mind with Twitter Spaces is that it was kind of a Me Too feature that was bolted onto Twitter quite quickly to compete with the work of a young developer called Ben Awad, who came up with Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is like this voice-only sort of internet platform. And as soon as he got close to launch, he went around and like tried to get VC funding and whatever. And as soon as he got close to launch, Twitter and then Discord, and I believe, I don't know about Facebook, but certainly Twitter and Discord both launched their own sort of voice-only sort of spaces, well, places where you could sort of talk to people from around the world to compete with him, just to kill his product dead in the water, I think. But the guy that came on yesterday mentioned that, you know, emoticons are a measure of engagement, and I think that is plausible. I think it's also possibly because MriyaReport never ends, right? So a lot of the recommendations I see in my Twitter app are for upcoming Twitter spaces. So if MriyaReport's on all the time, there isn't a sort of start point. And I think that might possibly be something that you guys could maybe I don't know, use to your advantage in some way and say, okay, we're going to have a scheduled start at this time, and then, you know, have that pop up, see if that works, see if that causes the algorithm to pop up the space.
We
and
tried
finally,
that. Didn't work.
say that again. Oh, you tried it already and it didn't work.
We tried that in April and in May when things were a bit more glitchy and the infrastructure was not as stable. And we tried then afterwards when it became a bit more stable, but it didn't work at all. So by now, since we've upgraded all our phone systems and backbone infrastructure to the best possible extent which we can as a volunteer operation, I can definitely affirm that we're running redundancy systems in various locations, and we know one thing: the spaces break and crash for no particular reason. We've had spaces, as Tim knows, which went for 8 hours, and we had spaces which crashed after 20 minutes. There is nothing which we can do. The algorithm is completely, utterly bereft of any sense often enough. There's a couple of things which Twitter tries from time to time, just as background said about the emoticons, which more recently in their algorithm seem to have played a bigger role than before. But none of this makes any. There's no real standard. It's I don't know, shadow boxing.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is all symptomatic of a feature that Twitter sort of added on to compete with another product, and it's not the core sort of focus of Twitter, you know. But so yeah, that's why it's glitchy and that's why it's poorly maintained and so on. It would be my guess, and I don't know this for sure. But I would say also,
sorry,
yeah,
there's a good point in this, which you just highlighted. Yes, it's poorly maintained, but the funny part is, as Tim just highlighted, effectively, our community is maintaining the product by using it.
oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, that's the thing, because they wouldn't necessarily have predicted that it would be used in this way, or that it would become sort of a crucial line of communication during wartime. I mean, you know, it's amazing. The thing I was just about to say, Axel, is that the guy mentioned Clubhouse, and I don't know, this might be a really stupid question, but is it possible to simulcast on Clubhouse as well to get a new sort of audience of people on the internet? Is that something you've considered, or is it just completely impractical?
It is impractical, and the audio quality is terrible.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that was my 2 cents on emoticons. It is the sort of silly thing that that could well be true, because, you know, from the Twitter side of things, they're not. That's all. Yeah, exactly. God, it looks so funny. Well, there we go. So you've made me laugh with your emoticon usage, Axel, if nothing else. All right, I'll leave you to it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Lunchtime. Who was next? I think it was Heather, wasn't it?
Charles. No, it was Charles.
Oh, Charles. Charles, welcome up. Nice to see you.
Hey, good evening, guys. Yeah, since we're having sort of an which is, can you still hear me?
You're a little patchy.
Okay, one moment. Sorry. Okay, that should be better. Can you hear me now? Mic check. Okay, hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay,
You're good.
really sorry.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, what I'm concerned about is, I mean, obviously I'm fairly new to the space just in the last several weeks, and what I see going on is of course, over the last 5 weeks, Ukraine has started to prove that we can win this war, outright. And all of a sudden the cracks start appearing, and maybe it's a fan base kind of thing, like we're just cheering for Ukraine. But I don't think that anybody in this space who's active in this space is just a fan. We had a guest on earlier who said there's a lot of work to do. There is a ton of work to do. It's going to take weeks, months, to actually achieve the war aims that we need to achieve in Ukraine. And those are really clear war aims. So when we're talking about help and what we can do and how to do things, we've also had guests on who've talked about hybrid warfare, information warfare. We know that, you know, donations, time, information, this is the war. And so my only 2 cents here is that I'm concerned that as progress on the battlefield progresses, as it has over the last 5 weeks, that some people who are maybe just short-term observers or just fans of one side or the other might just see it as, okay, well, it's won, it's done. It's not done. There is so much more to go. And this is exactly the time when I see things like Free the Leopards and all of this. This is now the time when actually the most needs to be done to end this war as quickly as possible, so that Russia is pushed out of all of Ukraine, including Crimea. And I think that MriyaReport is an integral part of that.
Thank you for that, Charles. And I think many people who have now come to know or gotten to know us over time have found that out. The funny part is that, especially in recent weeks, because of the continuity, the consistency, and evidently the success of the format, attracting many expert speakers from all walks of life. We've discussed it here, you've heard it, you've been part of this, you know it by now. The fact that we've succeeded in supporting MriyaReport, but also Ripley's Heroes, and from time to time on special occasions, different support runs, all of this has led to more incoming fire. But as everybody here knows, the more incoming fire you have, the better you know that you're above the target. So we're doing something right. And we're not just, as we all know from the very beginning, pursuing a righteous cause and supporting it, but we're doing something right. And as Yehuda has highlighted, we will not stop. We will not falter. We will not waver. And we will be here. We have created redundancy, resilience, a large group of widely distributed moderators and crew, supporters, volunteers all across, audio, video, you name it. And that in itself creates that resilience as we need it. Anyway, so Tim, let's move on. We have all the hands up. So let's go to Heather, then we go to Troy, Marcus, background, Chris, and random. So Heather. Heather? Heather? Can't hear you. All right, if there's no Heather, then we'll go to Troy.
Hey, thanks, Axel. Hello, Tim. I just wanted to follow up on Lunchtime's comments about the, what are we calling these apps? Live podcasting apps, sort of. Yeah, there was Clubhouse initially, and then, the Silicon Valley geniuses rushed in to copy each other and see who could get the flag planted first and get the most popular version out. And I think it's interesting that, there was another one called Call In, which is like it's more, how can I put this? How more oriented towards like live podcasting and having comments and questions live from the audience, just like Twitter Spaces. So all three of these apps, and I don't know if there's probably other smaller ones, but these are the big three, all competing for the same kind of technology. It's a logical extension from the social media, the private groups on Facebook, etc., where nationalism is fomented and domestic political violence is fomented and planned, where prying eyes can't see. It gets people together. So the next iteration of that technology is voice, and then the final one is we're all wearing goggles stuck to our face, and we're in the metaverse all planning our machinations with each other against the government, or so it seems. And then they can also be used very positively. We are using Twitter Spaces, and I think it's very interesting that the primary investor in Callin and a lot of the money going into it are people like David Sachs and Peter Thiel and Pierre Odumayar, the people we talked previously about having great deal of money and then apparently choosing to fund far left, far right ideals and get them promoted and as visible as possible. So now we have David Sachs and Elon Musk both openly trying to purchase Twitter, of which Twitter Spaces is included, while owning an application they are desperately trying to cement as the next form of person-to-person communication. So clearly there's a lot at stake. There's a lot going on. And I think besides just being here for Ukraine and getting out good information, we're doing a service here, showing that this could be used for good. Human connectivity was good. The internet was good before, it got turned against us. So I think if the longer we do this and we can show an example of doing it positively and draw attention to the people who are just simply trying to acquire it for their own ends, I think that's in service of this war and in service of the cause of Ukraine and democracy as well.
Thank you, Troy. I see we've got Heather coming back up. Heather, can you hear us this time? Heather, the mother of angry German dogs, can you hear us? I guess not. Let's go to Marcus. Marcus.
Tim, one of the things I want to pick up on is the point made by Charles about resolve. And as we look forward, in the months to come and the years to come, the emphasis from Maria Aid obviously is going to shift, because this war is going to be won by Ukraine. Then it becomes the massive undertaking of rebuilding Ukraine. And we are going to continue to support, by providing things over there, be it medical, be it, infrastructure support. When I was over there, I met with numerous NGOs who were doing all kinds of work just on infrastructure. A French company that was building grain silos, for example, because of the blockade in the Black Sea. So nations and the IMF have given money out, but these are loans. what Ukraine needs are not loans. They don't need loans that they're going to have to then pay back because their economy has suffered so much through this war. I would love to see the world just, here's the money and use it. Go do what you need to do. Will the world develop a Marshall type plan for the rebuilding of Ukraine post-war? I absolutely hope so. But Maria Aid is going to be, we're going to be sticking around working with Ukraine for many years. And I think partially that is due to the fact that a lot of us have had very strong ties with Ukraine prior to the war. And speaking for, the country of Canada, we have a very large Ukrainian diaspora here, all thanks to a gentleman by the name of Dr. Yosef Alescu from Lviv, who was one of the first proponents of Ukrainian immigration to Canada some 125 years ago now. So we've got 1.3 million people who identify their Ukrainian roots in the census. And I'm waiting to see the last census that was done. I'm waiting to see that information. So it's probably shot up as well. So we're going to be around for a while. So we'll be using this platform as much as we can.
The bond between Ukraine and Canada runs deep. Tim, we have Heather back. Where, she has now restarted her thingy twice. Let's try. Heather.
Hi, Axel and Tim and the group. I wanted to talk a little bit about indoor camping because I just finished indoor camping. We had a hurricane on the 23rd of September, and we were without power here on our little farm for 8 days. We're lucky. It was only 8 days, and it's not cold here yet. I'm very concerned about the civilians in Ukraine because we have similar winters, and being powerless for more than a couple of days, the cold gets into your bones and you can't get warm. That really concerns me. As much as I'm concerned for the military and the fighters, I'm concerned for the normal people that are trying to survive day to day. How are they going to stay warm? They're going to need, we have a generator, so we get a certain amount of power here, but it costs a lot of money to run in gas. I'm very concerned about that, and I don't know how to help. I don't know other than to say you need to keep your head warm. You lose all your heat from the top of your head, so everybody needs to have a hat all the time in the cold. Even if it looks silly, you have to have a hat. Fingers and toes get frostbitten quite easily. We have reasonably the same weather, but so I know how to indoor camp and survive. There's a lot of people that need help, and how do we help them? Shoot, I'm not being very sensible today, but that's my problem. That's my concern. How do we help them? People, just regular, everyday people, stay warm. You need more than warm clothes. You need, a kerosene heater if you can get it. You need, if you need to charge your battery or charge your phone, you need to have a battery and an inverter. There's so many things that you need. And I can't hear anybody when I'm speaking, so I'm going to stop speaking now and let somebody maybe address that again. Thanks so much.
Can I jump in here, Tim, for a second?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, good point, Heather. Very good point. Any sort of disaster relief stuff and the stuff that you've gone through, it becomes very, clear and crystal that you need to have some very basic human life products there. You need to have food laid in. You need to have water laid in. You need to have warm clothing. You need to have generators of some sort. there's groups over there in Ukraine right now. I don't know how many times I bumped into these guys, World Food Kitchen, who are doing tremendous support over there, and they have their mobile kitchens that go up, and there's a lot of donations coming in from around the world to these organizations, and they go out and they set up a field kitchen and they cook for people in areas that are impacted. Now, of course, right up at the front, they're not doing that for safety reasons. But you know, donations to any organization that supports Ukraine are vitally important. I don't know how many packets of foodstuffs that I've sent over there because of the NGOs that I know there, and they're distributing this stuff upwards. So absolutely vital. You know, the people there are resilient. They've gone through hardship before. When Ukraine gained independence, there was massive economic turmoil in the country, and there was a lot of poverty, a lot of need. So there is that psychological resilience that's already built into the people. They do not spend money the same way you would see somebody in North America or Europe spending money. They've had the banks collapse. They know what that's like. They've lived in the hardships. So anything that we can do to support, absolutely important. You know, if people can buy generators and get them shipped over there, there's all sorts of things that individually we can do. If there's any Ukrainian, you know, Greek Catholic Church or Orthodox Church in the towns that you're in, all of those folks are connected with Ukraine. And when the war first started, I know just where I live, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and the Greek Catholic Church had massive drives, and people were bringing all sorts of things to the church, and these things were getting shipped off. We need to maintain that, and we can't think that you know, Ukraine has made great progress in the war, that we can lessen our resolve and the support to the people. Thanks. That was an excellent question, by the way, Heather.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Yeah, I mean, I would add to that okay, so there's two types of people, right? There's the people who live in the cities, the people who live in rural areas. Now, as Marcus says, the people who live in rural areas are used to this, right? You know, they're used to having periods where they don't have amenities. They're very resilient. They know how to take care of themselves. The people who live in urban areas, they're more highly concentrated, and this is where, you know, communal, you know, where it's easier for aid organizations and the government to help because the people are more tightly packed, and also it's easier to organize communal efforts, you know, so kind of feeding people in large groups and, you know, providing warm spaces communally where people can, you know, get their blood flowing again. So yes, should we help? Absolutely. Should we lose sleep with worry? No, probably not. I mean, Ukrainians are hard little bastards, and I have absolutely no doubt that they will pull through whatever's coming. Marcus mentioned the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. Now, I had friends when I was living in London. I had friends in the Ukrainian Greek Catholic clergy. They are absolutely ruthless. They are extremely well organized. They are very, very good at building communities. They're very widely respected by the faithful. You know, their level of organization and outreach and kind of basic humanitarian aggression would put the Roman Church to shame. If you live near a medium-sized city, there is probably a Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church in that city. So they will be very well organized. They will be very humanitarian-minded, and they will be very well connected in Ukraine itself. So as Marcus said, if you can get in touch with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic hierarchy where you live, they will be able to give you very, very good information on how you can help. And they will certainly be, they will be in a really good position to advise you and to organize and to get the community going around helping ordinary Ukrainians through the winter. I'm afraid that's not to slight the Orthodox clergy, but I don't actually know anybody in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, so I can't speak to it personally, but I'm sure they're fine people as well.
Thanks so much, Tim. I'm going to knock myself back down to listeners so that I can hear everybody. Bye.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Heather. I'm not sure of the hand order. I think it may have been Abdullah next. Abdullah.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks again. I just wanted to ask Marcus about the humanitarian groups on the ground in Ukraine. As you said, there are many of them. I don't want to open a can of worms, but I just wanted to ask about the Red Cross. Are they on the ground? There were unconfirmed reports that they fled the country when they heard the loud noises of the Iranian drone. Thank you.
Okay, so to be perfectly blunt, there are some organizations. When I was there, I saw lots of their vehicles parked in a parking lot, doing absolutely nothing. The UN was one of the major offenders, and one of the little souvenirs I brought back for myself was a beer made by Pravda Breweries. It's got UN colors written on, on the can, and it says non-alcohol. Basically, it's not a beer. It's ineffective, and the UN was absolutely ineffective there. The Red Cross over there, they are linked in with the Ukrainian Red Cross, but sadly, the reputation is not great. Forget about Amnesty. I saw a lot of Amnesty when I came out into Europe, trying to raise money, but they've totally blown any goodwill that they have with Ukrainian people. In terms of direct support to people, World Food Kitchen is one of the best ones that I had seen there. They were one of the most active ones there. There was another group that's out of the States called Samaritan's Purse, which I think is part of the Billy Graham Ministries. They've done some tremendous work there, setting up a field hospital that's in a city there, very well protected, providing medical attention to the individuals that are in need. But if you go to the Ukrainian government websites, you'll find a list of those organizations that that are supporting Ukraine, that they've sort of endorsed. So I would highly recommend just looking around. MriyaAid, of course, we are very well known over there with all the work that we're doing, and of course through all the work that all the listeners are doing in informing themselves and informing others, we're just going to get a greater and greater reputation over there. So that's all I've got for right now. Thanks, Abdullah.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Carl Prosser.
Hello. Yeah, I'll just add quickly onto this whole cold situation. We had a guest a couple of days ago who she was talking to, governments in Europe. I think she was in the US, trying to get government to government. Because, Heather, you're right, there is a degree, right, after 2 days of, no electricity, no heating, that, the problems build up. And so I think one of the biggest things, since that's hitting core infrastructure to take out the electricity, is ability to quickly repair that core infrastructure. Like, think of something like the recent hurricane or even Hurricane Katrina. How soon do you get things functioning again? So I think we can lobby our governors, government people, our senators, House reps, or whatever, to say, hey, can you do something to help get the repair supplies and personnel pre-staged in Europe and Ukraine to be able to help repair this stuff sooner than later. She didn't talk about the specific things because that was sensitive. But if we could put a little bit of pressure onto our government reps, we might be able to do some good. Especially in cities, right? Because in the rural areas, people might already have a wood stove, right? And it's possible at the decentralized civilian level to put things like generators and that in the suburbs or rural areas. But in downtown, where you just have tens of thousands of people living in concrete apartment blocks, that isn't feasible. But anyway, my one question was, we were talking about some things, and I got in on the tail end, so I don't know the context. We was talking about Twitter and kind of issues. So my question is, were we just talking about just random Twitter technological quality issues, or has there been some sort of attack against MriyaReport or its people, or some sort of shadow blocking? I just people talking about something, but I didn't know the context.
No shadow banning. No
Okay.
shadow banning. No,
Okay.
we have not been shadow banned. We're very lucky in that regard. Also, it would be very difficult to shadow ban us by now, given the consistency of the product from a Twitter perspective and the consistency of the message. We tend to be focused on making sure that we get, we tell truth to power, that we try to get the right information as we can. We do not necessarily shout much here. Yes, from time to time there's one or the other rant. I am, in that regard, definitely an equal opportunity offender. I rant at both the left and at the right, and I tend to rant, if need be, at my mirror image if I'm unhappy with myself, but definitely at the Russians and Mr. Scholz. But then again, that's nothing new. But having said this, I tend to believe that this is a very civil discourse here, and it's very important that we keep it that way. And it's very focused on rendering support for Ukraine. So having said this, not everybody can agree with our message. That's evident, even in civilized countries. But we have to deal with it. We do. And I think we do this in a reasonably good discourse. From time to time, we become a little bit more heated, or could be a little bit more intense. There are debates which become quite strenuous. We often have even some trolls coming in, but beyond that, there's a vast grouping of people who are interested in discussing how to aid Ukraine, not if to aid Ukraine, and what to do best, what possibilities exist, what dangers there are, what concerns there are. And that in itself is a significant gain over the passive consumption of CNN in the early 1990s. And I think this makes this such an interesting media project and an interesting global community. It's a mixture of digital talk radio and long form conversations at the same time, whilst tapping into thousands of experts and people who generally just are there and as citizens want to be heard or want to discuss, want to ask questions. Nothing in this is to the detriment of the rules of Twitter. On the contrary, I think this is exactly what this should be. But what do you think, Carl?
Yeah, good. I just wanted to give a context. So we're only just complaining about quality issues. There hasn't been any attack on the reputation of MriyaReport or its people or anything like that. I get context, but yeah, I agree with you. This is really unique, and I think it will be even unique in history in some ways, right? So,
Carl, mate, you're breaking up. Carl, you're breaking up, mate. Carl? No, you may have to reconnect. You're broken up. You sound as if you lost signal. All right, Carl needs to reconnect and come back up. But then again, he is on the west coast of the United States at the moment, doing obviously good Kiwi development aid.
That's still a long way. I would add, while Carl is sorting himself out, Carl, we can't hear you at all. You're breaking up, mate. I would add that what really makes the space is the listeners. One of the things I've noticed, and one of the things I say a lot in an appreciative way, is that whenever you mention something on MriyaReport, someone will pop up who knows about that thing. So, like, say we're discussing, I don't know, oil deliveries, and we have some technical aspect of the weight-bearing capacity of an oil drum or something like that, and we don't know what we're talking about because it's just so esoteric that nobody could possibly know who is a normal person. Someone will pop up who knows about the weight-bearing capacity of an oil drum, and talk about it in fascinating detail. So if that's you, if you're one of these, long-time listeners, never time callers, and we're talking about something that speaks to your expertise, then please do come up and talk about it. We'd always love to hear from you people. So if we're talking about something that you have nerdy, esoteric knowledge on, you are contributing enormously to the space by coming up and speaking. So don't be shy. We're really quite friendly. Well, I am anyway. So please do come up and have a chat about it if we're discussing something that a heck of a lot about, or even just a medium-sized amount about. So yeah, it's really the listeners who make the space, and we appreciate every single one of you.
That's absolutely true. And by the way, this of course is valid as long as it's not Tim and myself. Sorry, I just muted everybody. I am absolutely terrible. I'm sorry. I was just walking back to the desk from the kitchen. I apologize, but on a more serious note, it's evident. It's a community of people who have skills, experience, and contribute. And that makes it so absolutely valuable.
Absolutely. I think it was Random Minutia who was next. Random Minutia.
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, my dog is whining at me in the background.
That's good. What kind of dog do you have?
Pit mix. Pit bull, American bulldog, terrier mix.
Okay. They cannot stop, right? If they get you,
he's very needy. But the thing I wanted to say is the support and the platform that you guys have, I mean, in this Twitter space is really unique, and I caught onto it a week or so ago. My first introduction to Axel was doing the wrong thing, which was musing about the possibility of a truck bomb on the Kerch Bridge. I will never do that again. But I've learned my lesson. I will never do that again, Axel. It's like this. That's the importance of having professionals on these spaces. And so it's always good to have new inputs and learn something. Sometimes you can ask a stupid question or say something, and and you learn something in the process, and I think that's really important. Marcus, I heard you talking about World Food Kitchen. I'm assuming you mean the World Central Kitchen started by Jose Andres.
That would be the one.
Yeah, so that would be a good get as a guest. I think you guys probably had him on if you guys have been on long enough. But he would be a good guest to have based off what he's been doing in Ukraine and just everywhere else. So, but I did have a question because, yes, Loki, I know. The idea of this platform and getting more access to it. I know we spent time talking about Twitter and the algorithm, but a lot of the stuff that you guys do I gave me some thoughts like cross pollination with other media platforms. So I know you guys have Spotify, and that made me to ask myself, well, why aren't they on Apple Podcast? And then so I'm assuming there's reasons for that probably in the background, but I mean, a lot of the stuff you guys have on here all 24 hours, you have a lot of golden nuggets in between that you could probably make on a YouTube channel very easily. And I know it's just the matter of just getting it recorded down, but I think you guys could do a lot with getting the info out to not just the spaces, because I think the main thing, and this is what the topic of conversation is avoiding complacency, because it's easy to get caught in the narrative that, oh, Ukraine's winning, the war's almost done. No, it's not done. It's far from done. And the best metaphor I could think of, because I root for a hockey team. So there's a lot of Canadians. The GM of my hockey team was Doug Armstrong, and he had a quote, because my team used to lose a lot when they would go up like 2-0 in a playoff round. And it's basically, you have to The quote he said was pretty graphic, but it was like, you have to take the knife, jab it through their eye into their brain, and kill them. And in this case, it's making sure, I know it's pretty graphic, but it's basically, you got to make sure we do that with our support for Ukraine and making sure they can do that to the Russians, because it's not over. And so I'm just curious on thoughts on spreading the message, getting that platform across, because you guys have some very, very intelligent people like Alexandra, and the way she's talking about getting the message out, getting the POWs to come and talk, because there's a lot that a lot of people don't know. And it is a good thing to have a 24-hour Twitter space, but a lot of this stuff can be spread to bring more people into the platform. And so that's what I was just wanted to add my 2 cents to that.
Thank you for that. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of things which we can and should do already. It's a matter of bandwidth and manpower. So given the fact that this organization is carried by volunteers and people who volunteer with their colleagues and friends, it is sometimes a bit of a challenge, but albeit that we, I think, have managed to already streamline these procedures and processes quite neatly. But in order to scale, it takes more manpower, and that can be. I'm sorry, I'm a complete idiot when it comes to these matters, and I'm an equal opportunity offender. You know, it does not preclude anyone else other than men. It includes women just as well. So it's a complete damn same thing. This is about everyone who's listening, and if you're good at audio, video, and the likes, please feel free. Come to us, talk to us, what you can do, what you can contribute. We've gone through quite some hoops in that regard. Spotify is the first platform in that regard which allowed us to do this appropriately. We will branch out, and we intend to do this on Apple Podcasts just as well. There's a couple of things which we need to do for that, and that's fine. The aspect of YouTube, we've tried YouTube, and by the way, Carl has kindly found a way to make sure that our stream even exists on YouTube, and that works perfectly fine for a number of people, which is great. But it requires, in terms of media and the editing, the cutting, the preparation, the post-production, that requires talent. We have recently started branching out on things which create more exposure of the MriyaReport as such. And that started with the first video which we put out on our own for the MriyaReport with James Vasquez, which, by the way, by now has 251,900 and something views within essentially less than a week. It actually shot up to 234,000 within 3 days, which is great because it tells a story, and there's more stories, more video shorts coming. We will be interviewing a number of the people who have been on the MriyaReport, such as what you just heard today with Alexandra, to tell stories and continue to do so, because we believe it's a very important function to capture the visuals and the visuals of these stories as well, but in a fashion which is a little bit more long form. Yes, we will do shorts and very shorts. We'll do teasers like 30 seconds, 2 minutes and the likes to capture more attention and garner more exposure to many more people who do not know us yet. But the long form discussion of at least 5 to 8 minutes, I know that sounds strange for long form, but still on Twitter it is important to us. Beyond that, there will be YouTube videos and documentaries which we're putting out for 30, 45, and even a full hour. And that is the target, to integrate this into media which is meaningful, which provides a new import, a new input into the discussion.
Yeah, I agree, especially because this is a 24-hour service and is in the top 3 on Twitter Spaces. I tend to think of this as the main course. And so if we're talking about food, so it's like, this is the main course. This is what you come for, the long form discussions that give you that in-depth input and some knowledge, and the knowledge of what you're getting into and how that plays in, because that's the main advantage to having a space like this. Whereas like you need like to have these nuggets, like say, like I know Language Learner comes on, he does a briefing every so often, like that. I know he cuts that for himself and stuff, but it's like, that's a good nugget to like go, oh, I wonder what else they're talking about today. So it's like a tease in a sense.
That makes sense. And we actually intend to do exactly that. We'll also have more takes of the various productions, but that actually takes time. That is time which you have to find, given the fact that most of us actually do, you wouldn't believe, work and have a life and run companies or teach. Some people, we have some people amongst us who teach. Some people advise on taxes. Other people serve in the military. You would not believe people actually do work and still do their thing. Others are retired and commit most of their living, waking time to it. And I sincerely appreciate that. This is absolutely key, because that is what a civil society is made of. Different generations interacting, interwoven, integrated, a strong fabric. That's what we offer.
Exactly.
So if you, amongst our listeners, have a proclivity for audio and video editing, if you are good at something, which we definitely are lacking, please feel free. DM Tim. Yes, exactly. All of you DM Tim. Unless, of course, you want to talk to matters of Serbia and Kosovo, then you have to DM Domen, as you all know. And but no, on a more serious note, please feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to talk to you. And if what you're doing and what you can contribute fits with what is needed in order to propel this forward, we will be happy to integrate with you and work with you. We are a reasonably sensible operation of idiots. I'm sorry, a sensible operation of very, very smart people. And we'll try to make sure that we get this done. All right, Tim, take it away. Tim, if you order a beer,
I'm not in the pub. I'm in the supermarket. I've done my pubbing, and now I'm in the supermarket.
Would you have a life too, Tim? How is that possible?
I do. I've got wife, 2 children, 2 cats. One of my cats is Russian. It's difficult. It's difficult. He's not sanctioned. I'm trying to keep him off the list. Yeah. I believe it was Chris van der Merwe next. Chris, don't trust Elon Musk. There's sound advice.
Yeah, I don't trust him. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for everybody for being involved. I'm a big Ukrainian supporter from New Zealand, and so I just hope that Ukraine's ability to respond to this aggression and war is not degraded over time. I think it's important that that their support and also that the ability of Ukraine is not degraded. And so one of the things that worry me a bit are the drones. And I'm wondering, it's not visible, obviously, because a lot of information on drones are not shared. But whether there's
Did we lose Chris?
Yeah, somehow his audio vanishes if he received a call in the meantime. It was pretty sharp. All right, maybe Chris comes back in a second. In the meantime, I think we have Jason and then Prince.
Yes, thank you. Along those veins of useful idiots, I had filled out a contact form. I'm a ex-vet, commercial drone operator and private pilot and a systems engineer, and I've got some blade servers and network equipment and fiber chassis and stuff. I've been trying to find the right resource to send over to Ukraine. I'm hoping you guys can help me with that.
Yes, we can. Can you please DM Tim and myself, and we will organize this offline together with our friends from either MriyaAid, and if you're in the US, you may have to do it through Ripley's Heroes, but we can certainly help.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've shipped a bunch of stuff over, but the drone that I shipped over got sent back by USPS. So any help understanding how to get batteries over there would be greatly appreciated.
All right, if you could just DM us, and we'll point you to the right people.
Awesome, thank you. I did fill out that contact form a few days ago, so I'm hoping to hear back from you. I'll DM Tim. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, Jason, thank you very much. Much appreciated. We will take care of that. All right, we have Chris back. Sorry, Johannes, Prince and Heather, or Prince, Heather and Heather. Let's do Chris first because he got somehow cut off. Please, Chris.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Chris.
Yeah, so I don't know. Did I start? Did you hear my? Was I cut off right from the beginning, or?
No, we heard you right back for about a few seconds, and then
Okay.
somehow you vanished. Just give it a
Yeah.
go.
Yes, thank you. So I'm worried about the whether there is systematic effort on the drones. So there's obviously the traditional anti-AI, anti-aircraft sort of stuff that one does, but then every drone is sort of a little different technology monster, and like there's the electronic warfare, and so I'm wondering, is there a feeling that the international community and Ukraine is having systematic support to address every drone and its weaknesses?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Everything which needs to be done in the electronic warfare space is being done. What we just need to increase the pressure on the elected officials to keep it up on a regular basis, because it's part and parcel of the overall activity. And there are a number of drone manufacturers from all over the world supplying different components and different pieces of kit, some of which are very, very exceptional in terms of both their use, what they carry, what functions they integrate. There's about 8 different types of drones you could classify, and Ukraine is getting support all across the board. So is there enough support? There never is enough. It's like ammunition. You never have enough. Is there comprehensive support? Definitely. The coalition of the willing is strong and well organized. Is everything coming on time? No, it doesn't. It never does. If you're in battle, everything you need is always somehow too late. But is it coming timely enough? For the moment, it does. Yes.
Well, I'm glad to know that, and that was my main question. And
you're very welcome.
I will continue to support you as much as I can.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you to everybody here.
I believe, was it Heather next?
I'm
Heather,
not sure whether it was.
There's
Yeah,
two
I'm
Heathers.
not sure whether
Prince Heather and Heather. This is confusing. I think it was you next, Heather.
I just have a really quick answer to whoever the gentleman was that asked about, listening, other ways of listening online. Because I have such terrible internet, pardon me, and cellular, one of the best ways that I am able to listen to the Maria Report is via YouTube. I don't know who runs the space, but if you type in MRIYA report in the search, it'll come up. It's not spelled wrong. I'm sorry, it's not spelled right, but you will find somebody is also broadcasting it live. It's Russia Invades Ukraine Twitter Space Live. That's the Maria Report. I don't know who it is that runs it, but if you know, so and so spoke 2 hours ago, you can go back and listen to what they said 2 hours ago. It's great if you have patchy internet and really bad cellular like me. All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Well, I know Tim was going to call on me, but nobody seems to be talking.
Sorry, sorry. I was just putting some shopping away.
It
Yeah.
was the
Okay.
heathering. No, there's a heathering going on. So
Yes, there is a heathering. And Tim, you're not the only person to take us to the grocery store. You probably miss it, but Yehuda frequently in the afternoon takes us through the grocery store. You can hear the grocery store announcements in the background. You can hear him going through checkout. He tries to mute to hide it, but you know he's in the grocery store. I get a kick out of it every single time.
Well, how else are we supposed to find out what deals are on at Safeway, Ottawa, or wherever it is he shops? You know, it's
Exactly.
a valuable service. They really should be paying us for it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I don't disagree with you at all. And actually, random, you said something that sort of made me giggle about about the truck bomb and the Kurtz Bridge. And there are certain things that get under certain people's skin. And I've been listening to this space since March, and I've sort of gotten a a gauge of things and how during the day somebody is in a mood and when I would want to bring up a subject because people are or not in the mood to hear something like that. And there was earlier this week, there was something that I wanted to ask, but I was actually embarrassed to ask it because I thought it might bring a little bit of ire in people thinking that I was showing some kind of support for Russia, and I wasn't. And I think, everybody here really knows me and knows that I wouldn't think that, but it was a talking point that I'd been hearing that I wanted, I had questions about. So I have gotten to know some of the hosts, and I was able to private message one of the hosts and ask that question privately, and they addressed the question, keeping me anonymous, so that other people now have an answer to what that talking point is that we're hearing from Russia. And so if there's something that you're not quite comfortable asking in the space, your Axel keeps his messages closed for very understandable reasons. There are some people who can message him, but most of the other hosts keep their messages open. And so if you ever want to ask a question, do that. And before, when I first started listening to this space and was terrified to come up and speak for the first time, terrified. um, I, I sent a question to Dolman to be asked on this space. It was way back probably in March, and he said, I encourage you to just come up and ask questions. This is a good question. And it took me about 3 more weeks, and finally on a Sunday morning I got brave enough to come up and ask the question. And now people probably roll their eyes when I come up to ask a question, but I'm not, I have no fear of it for the most part anymore, except for when some unsuspecting person may think I'm a random Russian troll for asking a really weird question. So anyway, if you always feel free to come up and ask a question. There really are no stupid questions, but if you're not comfortable, you're more than welcome to message a co-host, and they will definitely do something with your question for you. So and it made me think of it because of what Random said, but I think it's a good general message for everybody who's listening, to keep those kinds of things in mind. And I do have to say, as long as you're not on the receiving end of it, there is really nothing better than a good Axel rant. That when Axel gets going with a rant, there is really nothing better. And we get treated to one every now and then, but we know Axel's heart and how good he is. So anyway, I wanted to come up and say that, and thank you guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Prince Heather. Yeah, and this is important, right? And it's a learning process for all of us, is spotting the Russian propaganda points and countering them with real knowledge. And this is areas where we all make mistakes. We all read something and think, oh well, maybe there's something in that, and behind it is a Kremlin op or whatever. It's something we've all done, even the mods. And you develop a nose for it over time. So please don't be afraid to come up and speak. If you are shall we say, if you are pure-hearted, shall we say, we're not going to be horrible to you. Well, Axel might, but I won't. We're not going to be gratuitously horrible simply because you raise something that is coming straight out of the Kremlin, and you're wondering if it's true or not. So if you're coming up in good faith to ask a question about what do you think of this, you're always very welcome. You will be dealt with you will be dealt with. That sounds rather sinister. We will try to answer your question in a kind but sometimes forthright way. So yeah, it's and this is part of the space, right? This is information warfare. This is a place where Russian narratives get deconstructed when they are heard, right? So this is part of the service that MriyaReport provides. It is identifying and countering those Kremlin talking points. So if you have something that you're not sure about, something you feel may be a bit iffy, please don't be afraid to come up and raise it, provided you are doing so in good faith. If you're not doing it in good faith, you're going to get axled, or you're going to get Yehuda'd, or you're going to get domaned. Somebody went toe-to-toe with me on Holocaust history once, and he got timmed. He's the only person who's ever been timmed, because that's one of my areas of nerdy and extremely detailed expertise, where you will not
Wouldn't
get
it be better called senated?
Yes.
Sounds more surgical.
Like it does, yeah, senated, yeah. A subdermal senating. Something like that. Anyway, so yeah, please don't be scared. If you've got a question, if you've got something you want to come up with, and if you're worried that it might be a Russian talking point, all the better, because then we can deconstruct it, we can counter it, and we can arm you with better information. That is what we do. Now, Johan Ruhr, you have been banned from Russia by the FSB, and you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, what I have is probably not a Russian talking point per se, but something I'm incredibly surprised about, and that's that there still seem to be pro-Putin Ukrainians. I mean, just to illustrate that, my one of my brothers is a singer in the opera choir of this city of Kiel. And like 2/3 of his colleagues are East Europeans. Among them are several Ukrainians. And at the beginning, I mean, at least as he says, like at the beginning of the war, most of them had still been supporting Putin. In the meantime, some seem to have changed their minds, but some still support Putin. And I just wonder, I mean,
Johannes, that is very rare, if I may say so.
Yeah.
Both the voting records in Ukraine as well as current polling has been quite clear that the shall we say, the respect for the whinging midget is very low in Ukraine, and the more the longer the war continues, the fewer the voices who would have tolerated him. They were already pretty low after the last, I mean, as evidence in the last election. I'm quite sure there's always the odd one out, but yeah.
I just
Let's say
wonder whether we can stick a number on that, or
yeah, lower than 1%.
Okay, well, that's okay. And I don't know. And then there's another question. Maybe that's just about me personally, because I really feel I actually like. I mean, I've been as the profile shows. I mean, I've mostly been working in Russia for the last years with society organizations, but I feel Russia is really a lost cause. Now I would really like to go to Ukraine and do something useful. And so I was kind of about to apply for a position aid agencies who have a job opening now in Lviv, and I just wondered whether how Ukrainians take this. Maybe there is already an influx of foreigners kind of all going for these jobs. Maybe that's actually a burden for Ukraine, or maybe it's good if people come in.
Not at all, Johannes. Actually, you're asking the right question. Marcus is here with us, and he can actually address exactly that. Marcus.
Okay.
If I heard you correctly, you're asking how are Ukrainians receiving the people who have come into Ukraine to assist? Is that the question?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it would actually be a question not about fighters. I mean, that's certainly not something I'm trained in, but really kind of. I mean, I was really thinking about applying for a position in humanitarian aid, which is currently open, and yeah, because I really feel drawn to doing something and doing something there. I just wonder whether that's just my own like whether it makes sense for Ukraine itself or not. I mean, I
Johannes,
just don't know whether I'm a burden or I would be useful. Like and that maybe if you could answer to that like in a more generalized way.
Johannes, how do you fancy driving a Toyota Hilux, extremely long hours for free? Does that sound like the kind of job you'd like to do?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends where I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I mean, that's the question that matters. I guess.
Okay, let Marcus. Tim was just teasing. He just was part of one of the naval convoys from Estonia with donated Hiluxes going into Ukraine. But Marcus, you were about to answer Johannes's question.
So from the days that I was there, there were a number of people who were over there from other countries who were very well intentioned. However, they were wandering around Ukraine like a fart in the bathtub. I hate to put it that way, but aimlessly. The most important thing is the relationship that you have with Ukrainians. It's based on trust. You show up there, they don't know who you are. They don't know why you're there. What are your motives? It's very hard to become ingrained with the people and have that relationship that you're going to be able to do things. There were NGOs over there who had a mission, and they were very clear on their mission as to what they were doing, and they had the agreement and tacit agreement of both the military and the other civilian population. They would provide X, Y, and Z services to them. But I saw many people who just arrived, and because I was known by a number of people there, they would send these folks to me, and they said, "Well, I'm here to volunteer." And I said, "Well, what skills do you have?" And they had, "Well, I just came here for 2 weeks." Well, if you're going to come there for 2 weeks, you're going to be absolutely useless. I directed some of them to orphanages where some of them were able to help. There were some organizations based in the States that had volunteers there, but you had to be recruited, screened, and vetted back in the States before you could actually work there. Now, for the Ukrainian volunteers there, that was easy because they were local. It was like locally engaged employees. They were able to work there. So really, if people are looking to go over there, you have to do the groundwork first. Reach out to the NGOs that are known on the ground and talk to them about what need is there and what your skills are, what your time availability is. The other question is, are you paying for your flights over to Europe yourself, or are you counting on the NGO to do that? In my case, everything I do is self-funded. I'm not going to ask anybody for anything. I'll do this myself because I have vested interests there. So there's a lot of things you have to consider: time away from your and from your job if you're still working, but really get to know the NGOs first. There are, I was dealing with one of the local churches there. I came out and went to Germany and drove back in a convoy of 5 vans to bring these vehicles back into Ukraine. So it's really having the trust relationship. Now, MriyaAid, nicely enough, we have relationships with a number of local NGOs. So we're able to facilitate certain movement of people and certain movement of equipment and things like that. But do your research, do your homework, because showing up there saying I want to help is not going to do much. And sadly enough, when I was there, I saw a lot of war tourists who were walking around in camouflage, and trying to ingratiate themselves with the people. And Ukrainians are saying, "Oh, thank you for your support. Thank you for helping us," but they were doing nothing. So that was my experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. I mean, I'm just like only getting started with like looking into possibilities, and I have to say I'm fluent in Russian, but my Ukrainian is still kind of pretty basic, so I'm learning, but I'm not very far. But I really would. But I don't know. I'll just see. But thanks a lot for your advice. I'll see where it goes.
Ukraine can use all the help it can get, and if you find a suitable organization to work with on site, I'm absolutely certain that they will appreciate if you have talent, skill, experience in that regard, and are open to the languages. Don't forget, nearly 90% of the population in the country speaks both languages, so it's very worthwhile having.
Yeah, I know, but I guess now kind of Russian gets a bad rap. At least in the past, I never had problems speaking Russian to Ukrainians, but now it's starting. So I'm not. So that's also. I mean, not just because I really like the Ukrainian language. But I guess it will take a long time to get through.
You'll get there. That's great. But thank you, Johannes.
Okay.
That's a great effort of civil engagement. I like it.
Thank you, Johannes.
Yeah,
On that Okay. Thank you, Johannes. On that bombshell, I will have to leave you for the evening in the very capable hands of Axel and my second favorite Egyptian, M. And I will see you first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.
And your favorite Egyptian is Amun-Ra?
Saladin, although not technically Egyptian. He did run the place.
He's Kurdish.
He was Sultan of Egypt, it counts.
He's Kurdish.
Good night, Tim.
All hail to the Kurds.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the MriyaReport. It's 8:35 in Cairo, CLT, Cairo local time, and off to you, Axel.
Yes, welcome to the Voice of Cairo. And we have a lot of people up here. I can see Colby, who's joined us, and then Sean from UK4UA, as well as Bionada and Dave. But we'll start with Colby.
Thanks, Axel. Have we discussed the breaking news out of Belgorod?
Not yet, but it's very worthwhile having.
Alrighty then. So there is another fire at a electrical substation in the city. It is actually just 2 kilometers away from the previous substation, which was hit a few days ago with a unidentified subsonic munition. Haven't seen anything further on what might be the culprit of this one, but there is a very large fire blaring at this substation. So I've put a video of that into the nest. I also have it geolocated so you can see exactly where it is.
Now, how would that happen that they get something into Belgorod Oblast?
Pick and choose your favorite theory. I mean, Belgorod isn't far, so there's a lot of different things that Ukraine could conceivably use to hit Belgorod. Obviously, we've even seen helicopter operations, although that was quite some time ago now. But Ukraine's got a lot of different tools in the toolkit now that they could use to hit targets there. So. In the absence of further evidence, like we have in the previous instance, all many possible explanations for what could be responsible.
What else should we expect in the coming days, given the fact that Belgorod is now more or less very much in focus?
Well, obviously, we all have our eyes on Kherson as well. With what's happening down there, and there's a lot of movement in Belarus, and Belgorod in particular seems to be of great interest to somebody because we keep seeing things blow up there, and there's been a lot of activity with degradation of Russian air defenses in that area as well. So something is certainly afoot.
Well, what do you think is going to happen from your perspective, looking from Cairo into Ukraine, having looked at all the data? Don't you think that somehow the Ukrainians are now taking it seriously and they're picking off the targets along the border just to make sure that nobody squeaks in and shoots them, right?
Two possibilities. The first one is that there is an air defense battery somewhere that needs to be taken out, if not taken out already, and a couple of other valuable targets that they deem very important for the continued protection of Kharkiv. That's what I'm seeing from here.
Well, it continues. The thick plottons, let's put it this way. Sean, UK for UA.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Mic check.
There's no mic, but we can check him.
Excellent. I was just coming in on what was it Johannes was asking about just popping up in Ukraine and just offering to help. And I think from what I've seen, and I echo everything the previous speaker who answered him said, that if you're serious about committing to it, then it's not a 2-week stint, as some of us has found out eight months later. And basically, I think the best thing that a lot of people can do, certainly in many countries in Europe and well, much even further afield, is look to support the Ukrainians that have been displaced. Try and network in with those refugees that have had to move to the country that they are situated in, and just see what they can do to help, because they're starting from nothing, so they could do with all the help they could get. And again, if they're serious about committing and actually working in Ukraine, the Ukrainians are really capable. If they're given the tools, they will do the job. So, the only reason I'm usually in Ukraine is because I'm bringing stuff in usually. But I'd say that the guys that I work with in Ukraine and the university and all the other foundations and groups, they're all Ukrainian groups, and all they need from us is just gear, equipment, supplies, and support. So it's manpower is not the issue. It's not boots on the ground that's needed. They need our support. They need our donations. They need our supplies. And again, the refugees that are in your home country, they're the ones that need your support. So if you can link in with those communities, those Ukrainian communities, and find out who those refugees are and what they need, that's the best way that you can support Ukraine. And also link up with local Ukrainian supporters and start your own community groups, and you can do bigger things together and make bigger impacts for Ukraine from where you are. You don't need to travel to Ukraine to support Ukraine. And all I wanted to do was just come in with that. And I'm still on the road, as you can probably hear, so I will I will just step back off to listening. Thanks.
Bionade, guten Abend.
Yeah, guten Abend. And to all the fellas, happy Wednesday. Just wanted to chip in on the thing with showing up in Ukraine and helping. I mean, it's I understand the thing that you want to do it, and I feel myself so, and I usually planned to go in December, visiting some friends in Lviv and Kiev, and I already talked to them, and it's easier if you have connections on the ground to get somewhere where you can help and something like this. But I'm really thinking about canceling this trip because of the problem with electricity, and every tourist there or every one who is there who is not necessary is is on the grid, is using electricity, is usually using water and everything, and it's extra stress, which is in sometimes not necessary. So if you want to help, and if you're a specialist or something like this, and you say, okay, I can go there for some time and can help there, absolutely. But if you're planning a trip 2 weeks, you can't do not much if you don't have any good connections and something like this. And if you don't have a good reason to go there, please don't go, because it can have negative effects, sadly. Yeah, just like Limaji just texted me. Go there, bring a few generators. Yeah, absolutely. If you can do this, do this. But don't go there for tourism.
All right, thank you for that. Dave, please go ahead.
Hi, hi Axel. I had a question. I'd seen some something in my timeline. I think it was maybe last night or yesterday, and they had pictures of the Nord Stream. They got a something down there and got some photographs of the damage. It was hard to tell that it was even a pipe, or at least to me. I obviously I couldn't make heads or tails of it. But I was wondering if anybody had done any, kind of analysis on it, or whether there were thoughts, and that was all.
All right. Someone who did some work with the oil industry and followed the Deepwater Horizon catastrophe closely. This video was taken after government divers and government submersibles went down there and carried out their job. So it would be expected that some of the debris was removed, so on and so forth, for analysis and for investigations. You can clearly make out of the video released by the scientists and the journalists who were allowed to send down a drone to take photographic evidence and video evidence that it was the direct result of sabotage, and that's about it. If it's not the initial video taken on the first dive, then it's not really worth anything, because you know that the initial video will give you more information, and we don't have access to that. And you know that whether the divers were sent out there, probably technical divers, not just regular diving, that some of the debris had been removed for analysis, and all that information currently is classified. There's an investigation going, and the government of Sweden more or less is in control of that investigation. And as they release their findings, we'll have to take it at face value, basically. The video released from that journalistic investigation is inconclusive at best, and you can't make anything out of it. What you can make for sure is that that pipeline was sabotaged. How and why and when, we simply don't know. That information is not available in any public or open source domain whatsoever.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That answers my question perfectly. Have a beautiful day, and thank you everybody for the space and your time, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Dave. Shadira, you requested the mic. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a question. Recently, Ukraine has been winning the war, and it seems on Twitter that Russian propaganda skyrocketed, like increased by 10. When this war started, I remember many Russian trolls and vatniks from Asia, Africa, I would say the global south, including China, we are laughing. Now Ukraine is winning the war. They are screaming that there'll be a nuclear war. What I don't understand is they told us that Russia is strong. Now Russia is weak, and they're telling Ukraine to surrender because Russia is going to use nuclear bomb. And that's what I don't understand. So what is the USA going to do? Because they asked Biden, and Biden was like, I'm not going to tell you. But if in any way Putin tries to press the nuclear button, or will I say order for a nuclear bomb in Ukraine, what will be the reply of the West?
Complete annihilation of the Russian task force in Ukraine, as well as the complete destruction of the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, as well as other measures.
Then I want to ask another question concerning the People's Republic of China. I was going through history, and I discovered that when Japan invaded China, that after some time, after Pearl Harbor, that the USA started supporting China with weapons to fight Japan, giving them billions, or that's weapons that more worth in value now than what is given to Ukraine, which is limited. So I'm
Well,
surprised to see
they didn't have the level of technological advances in weapons and transportation capabilities that they have today. Yes, history is a very good teacher, but to compare what happened between 1936 and 1945 to what's happening in 2022 is a bit of a lame duck, but carry on, please.
I'm trying to say, why is China opposing USA giving weapons to Ukraine to defend herself? Since actually, it's almost the same thing that Japan did to China that Russia is doing today.
The Chinese government right now has different calculus than it had more than 80 years ago.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Shadera. Let's go to Marcus.
Just to pick up on that point, yeah, the history has changed so much. During the Second World War, we knew who our allies were and we knew who the Axis powers were. So, the defeat of Japan was part of that Axis allied battle, that was the battle space that was going on. So China has absolutely changed from that point in time. Just look at the relationship between China and Taiwan and the issues that raises these days. So, in terms of countries like China, the fact that they've not come out and tacitly condemned Russia for what's going on, and I'm sure that they're still pulling strings with the Kremlin as well. But I think the focus for us has to be maintained on Ukraine, its sovereign territory, putting Russia in its place once and for all. Because if we don't, they're just going to continue, and they're going to have the support of China. They're going to have the support of Iran as well. And the other country, of course, that's on my radar is India as well, because they have not come out as well and condemned Putin for what's going on. So that's all I have to say on that one. But I agree with you, Em, totally, that if Russia was to use a nuclear weapon, they would be on the receiving end of some pretty nasty stuff.
Jingo, please go ahead. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah. So, first of all, there's some parallel in today's situation between today and World War II. In that, in World War II, it is basically an axis which is fighting both in Europe and Asia. And today, it is also basically a coalition to topple the current world order, liberal democracy, both in Europe and Asia. And in the one in Asia is grossly misunderstood and underestimated. So that's the first point. The second is, when it comes to World War II, the 1936, there's a massive misunderstanding here. The first is, at that time, China was instigated by Russia to go against Japan, because at that time, Japan